Come on up, Alan. We now have Allergy Man. Why don't you have a seat, Alan? And Alan's going to give the talk on allergies, but I wanted to have a little conversation first. You know, he and I talked a little bit about what he does with it, and it's very creative. And in the conversation, I was talking to him. There's one of the big problems with allergies is trying to find out what you're allergic to. I mean, that's one of the issues. You know, and sometimes you really know what it is, and sometimes you really don't know what it is. And I've had people that where we really didn't know what it was, and I thought I'd just give you a little rundown for a moment. If you have any input, will you?
As far as finding the toxin.
As far as, yeah, I'm going to give my own thing on that. But if you have a thing about it, you can say it.
Well, let's see what you say first.
I forgot.
Well,
who's the straight man here?
We don't have one.
A couple of clues here that I found useful in time. If somebody doesn't know what they may be toxic to, like if you're just not able to get EFT to work, for example, and maybe some kind of a toxin's in the way, you can ask them, and oftentimes this works. You can say, "What do you think it might be?" And you'd be surprised what their intuition will bring up. Another thing to ask them is, "What do you eat, drink, smell, wear a lot of?" And you will find that often is a toxin to them because they tend to eat too much of it, and thus overtax their body's ability to handle it. Therefore, it becomes a toxin. Okay. I've also found cases. In fact, this is written up on our EFT list. I had a gal with depression where I just did elimination diet. She fasted for 36 hours, and then we put her on. She ate one thing at a time. Oatmeal, for example. That means oatmeal, no sugar, no milk, no bananas. Oatmeal. Period. He has no reaction to that, then 2 hours later we'll eat a banana. He has no reaction to that, a little bit later we'll eat an apple. You know, and so on we go until eventually we find something that shows up for him. Anyway, I just want to give that little input. Alan, I'm going to hand this to you. This delightful audience is now yours. Treat them gently.
Thank you. Thank you, Gary. Gary lent me his car one time when I was visiting. He said, "Treat it like it's your own." So I sold it. Now, why we're here, that's what you think, is to talk about allergies, sensitivities, energy toxins. Now, I'm going to tell you what they mean in my universe, and I'm going to tell you how I deal with them in my universe. And since we may not all be in the same universe, some of these things will be more helpful than others. Allergies are reactions that you can see or feel. You don't have to write any of this down because you'll see why in a minute. Sensitivities or energy toxins are when you have reactions that you don't know about. For instance, when I was at the Grand Canyon and I couldn't look over the edge, this was at the North Rim where it's really steep. I couldn't look over the edge, so I did some work on myself and I did some tapping, and the next day I could look over the edge without that electrical current going up my spine. Within 3 days after having nice desserts on vacation, I had the fear back, and I realized it was sugar. So I neutralized that, hoping that I could eat sugar and not have a problem and not have my fear of heights. Well, what happened was I got rid of the fear of heights again, and I didn't have sugar for 2.5 years after that. I lost my craving for it. So one way to look for what people are allergic to is, what do they crave? What's their comfort foods? What's your favorite thing? What's your favorite food? What's your favorite soap that you use or whatever? The other thing is that allergies, they're not bad for us, meaning the substance that you're allergic to is not necessarily a bad substance. So in other words, people will say, yeah, you know, allergies are on the rise because there's so much pollution and so much toxic chemicals, but usually that's not what we're allergic to. We're allergic to anything: jewelry, vitamins, organically grown fruits and vegetables. It doesn't matter. So when you're looking for things, don't look for the things that are quote-unquote bad for you. it's probably something that's good. Before I knew anything about this, you figured, well, corn is good for you, wheat is good for you, dairy products are good for you, water is good for you. Wearing a ring means nothing as far as whether you have an emotional reaction. How could wearing a ring or a piece of jewelry cause depression? So look for anything. Now, one of the ways that I do it, when my intuition isn't bringing me the results, then I use mechanical intuition, and that's muscle testing. So I use that quite a bit. What I want to do, though, and we'll talk about that a little later, what I want to do is call 3 volunteers who have an allergy and something they're allergic to. There's 1, there's 2. All right, let's get someone from this side of the room. Okay. Yeah, come on up. You get to be on camera. I love doing stage fright. I'm a musician by trade. So I love doing stage fright workshops and calling for volunteers to come up. It's so cool. Hi.
Hi.
Does what's your allergy?
Sugar.
Does anybody have any dessert left that they're willing to? Okay. Hi.
Dairy and mostly cheese.
Okay, good.
Iron.
Okay. Okay. So we're going to start out. Oh, good. We're going to start with sugar. Okay. Well, we don't have to bring it close. Well, this is enough for me. What's everybody else going to have? Great. Okay. I'm going to work the room for tips after this. All right. Now, of course, a lot of people say you have to hold the sugar in order to test for it. However, Rose is just going to look at it. Hold that for a second. Hold it straight out like that. Okay. Now, just say my name is Rose.
My name is Rose.
Okay. Don't resist.
Okay.
Say my name is Rose.
My name is Rose.
Good. Say my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Good. Feel the difference?
Yes. Oh,
Okay.
yes.
Now, look at this. Just looking at it, thanks. Just looking at it causes the problem. Thank you. Now, let your arm be a little bit lower. Okay, and don't resist.
Okay.
Say my name is Rose.
My name is-
Let it just be there. No, let it be right here.
Okay.
Okay, say my name is Rose.
My name is Rose.
Good. Now, close your eyes. Now, say sugar.
Sugar.
She doesn't even have to look at it, okay? And it doesn't even have to be in the room, okay? Now, when you're working with people, you may want to have it there because it's more believable to start with, but notice that she didn't need it here in order to blow out with it. Just the thought of it will create a problem, okay? So imagine what it was like walking through the line, and there it was, okay? Now, what happens when you have some sugar?
I lose my concentration. I can't talk. I sweat. A very definite hypoglycemic type reaction. And my thinking.
Okay, so right now, when you look at that, what's your level of discomfort, or do you have one?
I'm sweating.
Okay.
I'm uncomfortable.
Good. And so on a scale from 0 to 10, how uncomfortable?
I an 8 right now. If I ate it
Okay.
out.
Okay. Now, what I want to do is tap for it.
Okay.
Okay. Now I start real simple. Okay, as you'll notice. Is everybody doing their sugar allergy here? And notice I don't always use a reminder phrase. Because if somebody's at an 8 in my universe, they're probably not thinking about too much else. Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Good. So is still at an 8?
7.
7? Okay. Let's tap here. Say, I deeply and completely accept myself.
I deeply and
Even when there's sugar around.
even when there's sugar around.
I deeply and completely accept myself,
Deeply and completely accept myself.
even when there's sugar around. I deeply and completely accept myself.
Completely accept myself, even when there's sugar around.
Good. Now let's go through again and see what happens. Okay.
Probably about a 4.
Okay, so notice that now we know that there was a reversal, and we corrected it, and now it went down to 4. So let's go again and see what happens. Now we could have done this just with muscle testing and find out that when the arm holds strong, we know that there was a change, but we're actually getting impact or feedback from Rose to find out how she feels about it. So notice we do the allergies and emotions are pretty well interrelated.
Probably about a 1.5. I'm feeling good about being around that. I'm not sweating. Good. Yeah.
Okay. So let's go one more.
Okay.
Let's go one more. The one quote-unquote negative emotion that I never tap away and I find acceptable when we're doing this process is greed. Which means if Rose went from an 8 to a 4 to a 1.5, why not 0? Mm-hmm. So greed is okay, and I guess that's what we talked about all morning, isn't it?
I feel good.
Okay, so now, since I don't believe anything Rose says,
I wouldn't either.
say my name is Rose.
My name is Rose.
Good. Say my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
I do a very light muscle test, by the way.
Very light.
Do not resist at all. Say my name is Rose.
My name is Rose.
Good. Say my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Feel the difference? It's slight. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
I can feel it.
Okay, now close your eyes. Say sugar.
Sugar.
She's very strong. Now,
That is amazing. That is very amazing.
good.
Yeah.
Another satisfied customer. How long have you had this?
Years. Definitely. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you.
So you don't need the substance there. Okay? Now, if the client needs it, then provide it for them if they need it to believe it. But notice just the thought made a difference. And as you change the thoughts and the body's automatic reaction, then you got it. Your allergy was...
Cheese.
Okay, good. So, her allergy is dairy products and cheese, so we'll go with cheese. Okay. Say my name is Susan.
My name is Susan.
Good. Say my name is Judy. Okay, feel it? Okay. When you feel it getting weak, just let it go. Okay, so that people in TV land can see. Okay. Say cheese.
Cheese.
And there it goes. Okay. When you think about it, is there any emotional reaction?
More physical.
Where do you feel it?
My head hurts and my muscles feel tight and they just ache.
Okay. Just thinking about it. Okay. So how different are allergies? Is this a physical thing? It's all, to me, physical and emotional are the same thing. Okay, because she got it into her head so clearly that cheese was harmful that she's resisting it and she's resisting the thought of it. Okay, and then there's whatever emotions. How do you feel about being at the mercy of cheese?
Not very happy because I miss it. It's definitely a comfort food for me.
Wow, okay. So now we have some really good conflict. This is great. Okay, so right now on a scale from 0 to 10, how bad is your physical reaction?
7.
Okay. Now the reason I'm going for the physical first is because she's not happy about having it, and we work with the physical and we get it down to 0 and she can eat cheese again, then she doesn't have it, there's nothing to be unhappy about anymore, which would be pretty cool. So here we go. Sure. Both hands is fine. Yeah, just go all the way down. When I work after the first time that I tap with somebody, usually I'll tap along with them, and I'm following them rather than leading them. So if they want to stay longer at a certain spot, that's good. Notice the breath that she took? That's a good sign. Is it still at a 7?
No, 3.
Good. Okay. So let's go one more time. And when I introduce EFT, I say, if we can get this down to half in 20 minutes, you think that would be pretty good? Yeah, that would be real good, I usually get, knowing full well that we can get greedy and go all the way. So that's another way to help, people appreciate what we're doing here.
Zero.
No headache left. No tightness. Okay. Now, what's your favorite cheese? Kojak?
Kojak or anything on pizza.
Okay. So picture a big plate of that, like you take out of the fridge when things are stressful. Okay. Is any of it coming back?
Yeah, a little bit.
So how intense is it now?
3 or 4.
Okay. And that's without the stuff there. So let's go again. So we may be hitting another aspect of it. Okay, so now we're addressing possibly something else, or what we've done by putting a plate there, even in her imagination, is making it more real. Because before it was just the word cheese, and now it's the good stuff. I grew up in a town that was so small, the gourmet cheese shop, the flavor of the week was Velveeta. So are we still at 3?
Maybe 1, 2.
2? Okay. Let's go one more and see what happens. If we're lucky, and I'm saying this so she won't hear, if we're lucky, it won't go down, and we'll have to go a little bit deeper, because sometimes that happens. You always go from, what I always do is go from simple to more complicated. So you always check to see if the TV's plugged in before you start taking it apart.
It's at a 3 or a 4 because of something. I don't even know what it is, but it feels different. Something popped up.
Okay. Physically or emotionally? So here's a question I ask sometimes. This is great. I feel like St. Mary here. It does? Okay. Now, what does cheese mean to you? If you did know, what when you miss it, what are you missing?
It tastes good. And if I'm missing it because it's a limitation. I can't. It tastes good. I want it. I can't have it.
Okay. And when there's something that you want that you can't have, how do you feel about that?
Deprived and trapped.
Okay. And right now, how deprived do you feel?
6.
Let's tap for that. So notice that something was causing it not to go down, and it's because the body wants the emotion taken care of. She wants the feeling taken care of. And the only way that she was going to pay attention to that feeling was by having a physical reaction. A lot of us will... Gary is now officially the big cheese. Okay, is the feeling of deprived still to 6?
That's about a 4.
Okay, let's go again. If anybody's ever read any of John Sarno's books, he's written, I think, 58 or 59 this week, but it's Freedom from Back Pain, and what he says is that back pain is not a physical problem, that you can take x-rays and like half the population will have slip discs and bulging discs and all this problems, but maybe only 20% of them have pain. And the pain comes from tension. caused by emotional problems. Now, the thing that I disagree with him about, he says that it's the body's way of masking the emotional problems. My feeling is it's the body's way of bringing out the emotional problems, because we will live with depression for 20 years, but we wake up with a backache and we call the doctor immediately. So what the body is saying is, hey, there's something that we want to change here, and we're going to get your attention one way or another. So that's why we went into the emotional aspect.
My mom just popped into my head.
I love moms. They're good for business. Yeah, hi, Mom. So now what we're going to do is, see this, let me demonstrate. This feeling of being deprived, about not having cheese, the feeling is not new. Right. Cheese may be fairly new, but the feeling isn't new. And can you think of a specific time when your mother trapped you or made you feel deprived, held back something from you that you really wanted?
Okay, yeah. In 4th grade, she made a list of who I could be friends with.
Whoa. And how does that feel on a scale from 0 to 10?
5 or 6 now. 5 or 6 now. I've done work on it.
Okay. Now, 5 or 6 now. What I want you to do, how old were you when this happened?
9.
Okay. I want you to be 9 years old again. I want you to go back there. I want you to look at the list. And are you still at a 5 or 6?
It's about a 10.
Okay. This is called, in my universe, this is called age recession. Okay? It's one thing, and sometimes it's necessary, sometimes it's not. Okay? But in this case, notice that cheese was at a 5 or 6. Even that incident was at a 5 or 6 until we got there. And then now we've got something that can really shift. Okay? I can't tell you how many times. You'll believe the first one, maybe not the second. I hear from people, I never thought of it that way. I hear that a lot. And the second thing I hear is, I thought I had cleared that. Okay? So unless they're back in that time and they're in their bodies, then you may have missed something that can be helpful. So what's the feeling now?
Well, some of it released because I was yawning. What's the feeling now? Or what's the feeling
At age 9.
at age 9? I was really angry at just the gall of her to do that.
Good. And of course, at age 9, it's not appropriate to tell your mother that you're angry with her. So that's why it's lasted so long. So is it still at a 10, or is it a little bit lower? 5? Okay, it's about a 5. Let's tap for that anger. So notice we went from real simple with Rose to many faceted, many aspects here. And for me, when I work, that's part of the fun. Because, so what if somebody doesn't eat cheese for a week, right? But to carry anger at your mother for, at least, 12 years now. You can tell this is not the first time I've done this, right? So is it still at a 5?
No, 2.
Good. Let's get rid of the rest of it. What Susan may find after she works on this allergy, that she may not crave cheese as much. Because it could be, I'm angry at my mother, or I'm angry at somebody, or I feel deprived, and she goes for the very thing that causes her a problem. What we're doing is breaking the emotional attachment between Susan and cheese. Now we've got an emotional attachment between Susan and her bed. She looks like she's ready to take a nap. But that's also a good sign. Is there any anger left?
Probably 1.
Okay. You want to keep it, or you want to get rid of it? Okay. Go for it. Here we go.
No.
Good. Now. Tell me what the reaction is.
I get about a 2 for a headache, but I think it's more the preservatives.
Here's some old cheese that hasn't been preserved. Now look at this and tell me if you get the headache. Okay, so you can do preservatives at your table later. Yeah, but notice that it wasn't about the cheese at all. So by a little bit of detective work, and of course Susan was great because she went back to her mother right away, and a lot of us know that's, you may as well start there, but you follow the client along. Thank you, Susan. Larry.
When people have a specific allergy, that's pretty easy. How about when they say I'm allergic to everything?
I say,
Go see Alan.
well, obviously not everything,
Well,
or at least not seriously everything, because they're still functioning. You know what I'm saying?
I hear what you're saying.
Okay. So, how do you feel about being allergic to everything? And then you can start there. So you look for any little doorway where you can get in. So whether it's physical, like what's one thing that you're allergic to, so you can start there. And once they begin feeling different, either their the muscle test strong or the numbers come down on the SUDS level, then they begin to see that there is some ray of hope.
Thank you.
Sure.
Alan, hi, my name is Vic Ford. Using the testing process, like substance, I am comfortable with you, or I am not comfortable with you. I had a couple who talked about their relationship as though it was toxic.
Mm-hmm.
Like we're poison to each other. Whatever we do, it's like we're that's allergic talk.
Yes.
And I found that when I experience that with somebody, when I'm in a bad place with my own wife, for example, I can say, Carla, I'm well with you, and if my muscle test strong, that's good. If it's weak, and I treat it, I'm in a different place with her. It's kind of remarkable. So I just wanted to offer that.
Absolutely. You can be, and when I said this morning, bring your husband if you don't have an allergy.
Right.
I was not kidding, or I was only half kidding.
Yeah, no.
That absolutely, anything, you can be allergic to anything.
Right.
One time I was in doing a workshop, and there was like 25 people in a room, and I said, I don't think there's a connection between mind and body. And you could feel the temperature in the room drop. And people like waiting, I don't see energy, but I saw everybody out the door. And I said, I don't think there's a connection because they're the same thing. So if you're working on one, you're automatically working on the other. So that's why, for me, it's like when they say, well, doctors have found out that a chemical imbalance in the brain causes depression. And since that was my mode of operation growing up, I thought, wow, this is great. This is great. Now we know that a chemical imbalance causes depression. Now, nowhere in the article did I read what caused the chemical imbalance. Right. So, because the body can manufacture any chemical at once. So I'm going to go below that because I don't feel like, it's like people with ADD, and I know that there's going to be a session on ADD, but ADD is not caused by Ritalin deficiency, right? So, and because, I was sitting around a table with a bunch of healers, and a lot of them did a lot of physical healings, and they were really good, and they said, at such and such an age, my life was in danger, or I was in an accident, or, I had this terrible disease. And for me, my life was never in danger, but it always felt like it was. Mm-hmm. So for me, I work from an emotional orientation.
Hey, Alan.
Yes.
One suggestion, when you talked about the legalities,
Yes.
do not use the word allergies. That's a medical word. If you
Right.
use the word energy toxins, you don't have any problems.
Thank you.
But if you use the word allergies, that is medical, and you will get in trouble.
Good. Okay, so that's good. I usually like to use allergies rather than sensitivities because it's easier to spell. But you're right. Energy toxins is good, and sensitivities, I would imagine, would be good. Imbalances, energetic imbalances. Okay. Good. Okay, so I'm not the allergy guy anymore. I'm the sensitivity guy. Believe it or not. That's way too hard to believe, right? What's that? Oh, the toxic guy. Okay. That fits because I used to live in a dump. But 2, 3, 4. Okay. I want to mention that there's a really good reference book and resource book that's actually for sale here in the bookstore. It's called Allergy Antidotes, and by Sandy Radomski, and it's well worth having. She talks about using EFT and a lot of other methods to work with these allergies, and it's really got a lot of information in it, so I highly recommend that. There's books by Doris Rapp, who I've seen videotapes of children, and they're nice and calm, and then she gives the child whatever it is that they're allergic to in a concentrated form, and the kids go wild. The kids, start hitting their parents and yelling at them and bouncing off the walls, and then she gives the antidote, and the kid comes down again. So allergy may be, and if you read the pulse test by Coca, COCA, it's in the notes. It's in the handout, and in the yellow pages. Let your fingers do the walking. And what he says is that even like nicotine and tobacco and things that are really bad, quote unquote, it may not be the nicotine or the tobacco or whatever chemicals. It could be a person's allergy to it. Does that make sense? So it just so happens that 97% of people are allergic to nicotine or whatever's in the cigarettes, but 40% of the population is allergic to wheat and corn and all those things. So because very few people are allergic to, other things, then we don't think of those things as being bad for us. But if the large percentage of the population is allergic, then we think, oh, this has harmful effects. Rose, come up. We have a progress report. This all right, here we go.
I did. I ate the whole thing.
And did you feel any reaction to it?
It was interesting. I went through a couple different phases with this. One was I started to get a little bit fuzzy-headed. Nothing serious, but I could feel it. I could feel it going through my system. I started to get the headache. It calmed down. That was on the first bite of the frosting. And so I waited for a little bit, and I was thinking about it, and it calmed down. Took a second bite of the frosting, and that's, really a lot. And kind of the same thing, and then it really weakened out. So I went through the whole thing just to see what was going to happen. And it was interesting. Well, no, really, because as I was sitting there looking at it, I didn't want to finish it. There was no desire. Now, this is unusual for me, especially with chocolate. I have a little bit. I want the whole bag or the whole box. And so I finished it more out of curiosity than desire.
Right. Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan?
Yes.
One thing you might want to ask Rose is, Rose, what? Oh, I'll ask her. How's that? If you had not done the work with Alan, what physical reaction do you think you would be having now through your experience?
I would have sank. It would have been real hard to follow you. I would have started getting a headache that would progressively get worse. I have had it. I have even had it take me to the point of ending up in the emergency room with it. I am one of those that if I get toxic substances, I've had airplanes stop and give me oxygen because of things like this. And I work with this. This is what I do, is working with the allergies. So this is so fascinating to me to be able to get through this quick.
In my discussions with you, we did a little tapping,
Yeah.
just as a precaution. In my discussion with you, you said it took about 5 or 10 minutes typically for you to really know.
Yes.
And it's been, 30, 40, 45? Well, how long has it been?
It's been at least 30 minutes
Yeah.
and probably 45.
Okay.
And I feel good, you guys. I feel great. Woo! Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Great. Another question.
Yes. Does this also address environmental toxins like pollens or molds? And
Yes, you can work with it the same way. The question was environmental toxins, molds, and even people have like hay fever, and there's a very non-specific thing, so it's hard to get the right allergen necessarily because they don't know. Lots of times I do a lot of working with writing things down on a piece of paper and using that as the starting point. And if they hold that, chances are their arm goes down, and we work with it until the arm holds strong. And we trust that we've made a difference. Now, if someone is allergic to shrimp, let's say, and they're going to go into anaphylactic shock, I don't muscle test them and they hold strong, and I say, well, let's go out for shrimp or anything. The final test is always what happens. So like with Rose, the final test was not that her arm held strong, it was that she could eat a piece of chocolate cake and stay focused for 35, 40 minutes. So you can make anything the issue. We work with emotions all the time, we work with thoughts all the time, and we don't have it with us. And you can do the same thing with the environmental toxins.
have you ever had any experience with pets as far as pet allergies?
Allergies to pets?
Yes.
Yes. Yes. In fact, some of you know Marie Green here, and she was, I think, over a friend's house or something, and a friend that she came in with was allergic to cats, and there was one in the house, and this woman was really worried. What Marie did is work with the allergy and then put the cat on top of the person who was allergic and had no reaction. She had no reaction. So it will work with any type of energy toxin or sensitivity. And we'll use allergies in here because we're used to saying it, but not in a medical sense.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi, my daughter does babysitting. She's 13 and making a little money on the side, but she had a problem with cats, being real allergic to them, and one lady asked her, and she had 2 cats in the house. And so I did some tapping with her one evening because she likes cats but can't be around them. She swells up, the eyes water, the nose, and she has a real problem. Well, did. I worked with her for about 10 minutes one evening because this lady called her again, and she went over and babysat and came back, and she said, it was great. There was no problem. I was holding the cats, I was petting the cats, and look, I can still breathe. And so, yeah, it works with animals too. I had experience with it.
That's great. People will be skeptical, or they'll tell you, well, I'm a skeptic. I don't think, I need answers or whatever. And I tell people that I'm very skeptical myself. I am very skeptical of people who tell me it's impossible to experience what I just experienced. So if I see somebody who has no reason to lie, go in and not react to a cat, then if somebody says, well, this energy stuff doesn't work, that's when I get skeptical because I saw it. And if you want to, I don't know, maybe we can do group tapping, okay? But what you're saying, or what I'm saying, if I say, well, I don't think what I'm doing is working, or I don't trust what I experience, and I'm not just talking about sensory experience because that's kind of limited, but if I don't trust how I feel, I don't believe it, then I'm not trusting myself. So there's an issue. So let's do this. Let's tap here. Even though I don't think this stuff works, I deeply and completely accept myself. Even though this stuff can't possibly work, well, maybe for others, but I can't make it work, and I can't believe what I'm seeing and or feeling. I deeply and completely accept myself. Good. Let's go. And you can, well, just go through it. You guys know it better than I do. And if you want to tap more spots, feel free. This stuff can't possibly work. Because all my family and friends tell me that. Of course, my family's been saying that since I was 3. See, I like to get to the issues behind the issues. That's right. It feels different in the room. Do you feel it? Yeah. Now you guys know this stuff works. And it really does. Now, so, who's got a cell phone? All right. Who doesn't have a cell phone? Okay. Come on up. Yes, bring your phone. Hold the phone. You know what? I don't know if I can keep up this pace. Okay. Now, the first thing I do, very few people think of themselves as allergic to their cell phones, but there's a sensitivity there and I use cell phone because because everybody has them now, and because it will blow out a lot of people. And I don't know if it's the electromagnetic radiation, I don't know if it's the frequencies, I don't know if it's what it represents to the person. A lot of people buy them thinking that it represents freedom. But I'll tell you something, I don't have one, because so far, no one person has paid me enough money for them to have the right to interrupt me when I'm not by a phone. So for a lot of people, what happens is that up here it means freedom, but here and here it means loss of freedom, whatever that word is. So what I'm going to do is get a baseline with Christine, so I know what a strong muscle feels like and what a weak muscle feels like. You don't have to resist. Say mine, but you have to leave it there. Say, my name is Christine.
My name is Christine.
Good. Say, my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Good. You're resisting. Relax. Okay. Say, my name is Christine.
My name is Christine.
Good. Say, my name is Judy.
My name is Judy.
Did you feel it go down? Then let it go. It's not a contest of strength, and there's no right or wrong answers. Okay. Is anybody here named Judy? What do you know? Okay. Good. Now hold this. Good. Say cell phone.
Cell phone.
Sorry. We have this nice dual Sprint cell phone for sale. Okay. So what I want you to do is go through a round of tapping. Okay. And we're just not emotional, not anything. And everybody, we can tell who has the cell phones. Everybody's, oh yeah, I got to do that. So this is one way to find what someone is toxic to, is just do it. Just do the muscle test if you do that, or talk to Steve because he's got the heart rate variability machine, or you can use your intuition or whatever it is. If they come with a complaint, then you can go down a list of things that they deal with all the time, and if they come back next week and their life is better, then you know that you did something right. So there's lots of different ways to do it. Let's see if the one round was enough. Not yet. Okay. So let's do it one more time. See what happens. Oh, you know what? Yeah, even when I'm talking on the phone, I deeply and completely accept myself.
No, when I'm talking on the phone, I deeply and completely accept myself.
Good. Even when I have my cell phone.
Even when I have my cell phone, I deeply and completely accept myself.
Good. One more time.
Even though I use a cell phone, I deeply and completely accept myself.
Good. Okay. Good. Yeah, that's a good sign. One of the best things you can do, okay, if you're driving and you want to drive with two hands and you don't want to tap or whatever, is just take a deep breath and let it out with sound. And that's a great stress buster. And when I work with allergies and sensitivities, it used to be I'd be working with it and I find myself taking a breath. And when I felt myself taking that sighing breath, I realized that, I think we made a change here. And usually the muscle tester will bear me out with that. When I'll sigh, I go, like that, and somewhere, and someone says, oh, you okay? And I'm like, I'm a lot better than you now. So it's really a good sign when people do that or yawn or something like that. So pick up the phone. Good. And notice that it's strong. Now, one of the things that I was disappointed in is that I couldn't like make it go back and forth, like put in the allergy again. Okay, but you can do this. Say cell phone.
Cell phone.
Say 10 minutes ago, cell phone.
10 minutes ago, cell phone.
Cool. So time really is on your side because you can use it. Thank you, Christine. Anybody else have, somebody brought a pillow in. Come on up. She was right waiting for me. What's that? You tapped for it already?
Yeah, well, we were doing the cheese. I did my feathers. I'm allergic to feather pillows, or I was allergic to feather pillows, and I don't usually have them around me, so it's not something that concerned me. But last night, I noticed when I woke up this morning that they had feather pillows, and that I was uncomfortable.
Right.
So I brought it with me after lunch, and I tapped on it, and now I'm like hugging it and everything, and I feel fine.
Good. Okay. Thank you. Anybody else have a possible toxin or something they think? Yes. Come on up. Yes. It's time for my break. Here. Good. You know, till I was 6 years old, I thought my name was Hilton.
Let me remind everybody, please, to use the microphone when you speak.
Come on up. Does anybody know how to do instant EFT? We have one person. Anybody else wants to know? Would you like to know how to do it? Yeah. Would you like to know 2 ways? Okay. Well, I can do instant EFT, but it takes a long time. You know, I get my right arm to be ambidextrous. Okay. So what I want you to do, say it's Yolanda? Okay. Hold your arm right here and let it just be there. Okay. Say, my name is Yolanda.
My name is Yolanda.
Good. Say, my name is George.
My name is George.
Good. Feel it go down? Let it go. If it goes, let it go. Okay, now look at that pillow. And you're resisting. You don't have to resist because it wants to go down. Feel it? Okay. Now, we all know, I call them the 7 magic spots. When I work with kids, you know, I'll say these are the 7 magic spots. And those are the ones that I use most often. Now, what I want you to do is take your right hand, and you can do this, and anybody who's allergic to feathers or whatever you're allergic to, have that in your head.
Does it matter that I'm left-handed?
No, you can use either hand, okay? And what I want you to do, and I'm going to do it first, if you let your hand go like this, you can feel all the spots being tapped on both sides.
Cool.
Isn't that cool?
Way cool.
Okay. Now, say, my name is George.
My name is George.
Don't resist.
My name is George.
Good. Now look at the feather pillow. And there it is. 5 minutes ago, feather pillow. Right now, feather pillow. Good. Okay. So that's the first way to do instant EFT. Another way is just if you decide that you can push this button right here, or what I do is I hold 3 fingers together like this, and when I do that, I've given my system instructions to do the tapping. And maybe you could feel it. Question. Okay. Does that make sense? You use some signal. It's like an NLP thing, isn't it? And anchoring it, right? That's all it is. So what you do is you decide what you want to happen. It's like doing a macro switch on the computer, right? You hit one switch and 17 operations happen. So you program in all the operations of the tapping, and you can use all the spots, whatever you want to do, and then you say, okay, when I push this button, or whatever movement you want to do, or whatever position you want to put yourself in, then the spots will be tapped. This is a nice one because you sort of feel it, and you can imagine it too. You can feel it for the for the women. You know, you can make believe that Mel Gibson is tapping you. For the guys, you know, You can pick whoever you want. I'm not going to say anything because my wife may see this tape. So I would picture, of course, my wife tapping me. I asked her last year, I said, what do you want for your birthday? She said, a divorce. I said, I hadn't planned on spending that much. Okay. Yes.
Alan, close to a month ago, I had a flare-up of gout. And I'd had it periodically, and I drank a little black cherry juice, and I'd do a little tap, and it'd go away. This last time, I could get it down where it was tolerable, but I couldn't get it out. And I've been told that it's probably an allergic reaction to something. How would I work on finding the underlying?
Well, there's two ways you can approach it. One would be to, find somebody to muscle test you and say, is there an allergy going on? See, when I muscle test, I'll just ask. I just ask questions. Is there an allergy we can look at that may have a positive effect if we change that? And then if it says yes, then you can say, well, what is it? And just start going down the list and seeing what it is. Another thing is, remember that if a physical thing doesn't go away all the way, then maybe there's an emotional component to it. And you can approach it that way. And the easiest way to do that is say, how do you feel about having that problem? And that usually brings up enough emotional stuff to get you going. Hi.
I have a question. When we're still doing preventative, well, we're not doing preventative medicine. We're doing treatment kind of with symptoms. So what's your experience about once you treat a lot of these symptoms, is there preventive medicine that you, not medicine, sorry, preventive.
Yeah, we don't treat and we don't have
right.
symptoms.
That you tell people to do daily so that you're not continually treating reactions as they occur?
That's a good question. I never liked homework when I was a kid, so it really hurts me when I have to give homework and say, well, do this every day. Sometimes I do it, and sometimes it's necessary, but of course, judging from my own experience as a kid, most people aren't going to do the homework. To me, the best thing you can do, and it's something that we're doing here all week, is to clear your own stuff. Okay? So what that means is that if someone's feeling pretty good, okay, if you've worked with somebody and you cleared up a lot of issues, then you don't have to feel bad to get better. You know what I mean? Like a free throw shooter can be shooting 92% and still work on his free throws because he wants to get to 96%. Okay? So in other words, I think the greatest thing you can do is just keep clearing your stuff and finding things to work on. And a lot of us as therapists are really good at stirring up hate and discontent, and we can find issues for people. Like we found the issue with Susan, who thought that she was at least half over that incident with her mom, and we found that there was even more to do. So I think that the best way to prevent things from getting worse is to allow them to get better. So and a lot of you live in areas where you know each other and all. The greatest gift that you can give and or receive is to get together once a week or twice a month and trade sessions. And I think that's great. So if you're going to give it away, make a trade, Make a trade, and it's great, and I recommend it highly.
Alan, have you worked with asthma?
The only time really, and again, I don't work with conditions as such, but I'm a musician. I was in the pit, and the flute player next to me has asthma, and she was having a hard time breathing. So I said, well, how do you feel about having it? And of course, she wasn't real happy with it. And we tapped for that, and we just did about 5 minutes, and then she could breathe easier. So again, I would work with it the same way that I'd work with anything else, which means I may start with the physical. How hard is it to breathe? And and Gary, you've all seen Gary do that wonderful breathing demonstration. And then, how do you feel about having it? And usually that feeling that they're having about having it isn't new, and that will take you back to a time when you may deal with some core issues, and that may help a lot. Hi.
Hi. My mother's got rheumatoid arthritis really, really badly, and I've worked on her in the past, but I just have a sense there's some sort of an energy toxin or some sort of an allergic reaction. Have you had any experiences with rheumatoid arthritis and resolving any of that?
Not specifically. I've worked on some pain, gotten rid of some pain for people, but I haven't been able to follow somebody through from, having it bad, getting rid of their pain, and then having everything go away. So I don't know.
I've gone back to the childhood traumas and things of that nature but it still keeps either re-traumatizing or coming back. She had terrible arthritis in her rib here. It took about 5 weeks of continuous treatments, but then it's gone. But hands and wrists and feet and knees still keep coming back, and I'm just wondering if there's anything you could suggest in that area.
You may want to look for toxins. Look, again, start with her favorite foods. Sorry? Okay. Start with her favorite food. Start with anything that she comes in contact with. And especially, you may want to see if she's aware of anything different that she started to use or started to eat before the latest flare-up, and go from there.
Thank you.
Sure. Yes.
I was just going to share my experience in treating asthma. I work for a school district, and I do counseling in 4 schools, and I'm responsible a lot for attending at emergencies. And we had one teacher who died of leukemia, and we had a student who had asthma very badly, and she went into a terrible state of not being able to breathe, and they had her outside for more air, and then they had her in the medical room with about 3 people trying to get her to relax and get her breathing. Nothing was working for her. She was just in desperation by the time I made my way through to her, and I started tapping the 9 gamut, and she was fine. I did it for her, and her breathing immediately came back in full force, and she was responsive to everyone. It was just miraculous. I told her mother afterwards that I had done that, and she said, oh, she didn't even know that the tapping had happened.
That's very common, but thank you for that. That's great. Carol.
Hi. Many people will describe an allergy as the defense mechanism, the immune system going into overdrive, and that, excess mucus, and because it doesn't feel safe, it perceives the threat. Right. So I found doing just a basic, I don't feel safe, just emotionally, nothing to do with the substance itself, but I just don't feel safe, and then having that trip back to childhood stuff really is helpful, or I feel threatened. Kind of perceiving it, there's some attack, or what did I feel attacked by?
Absolutely.
And it can help with the...
Good. There are 2 other issues that come up repeatedly with people who are allergic. One is self-punishment. So you may want to look at that aspect of it. And these are in the notes, by the way. So if you're writing down what Carol says, keep doing it, but what I'm saying is already down there. And then the second thing would be that people who are allergic get special treatment. So it's a way for people, and it's not a conscious thing, obviously, but kids especially, a baby brother or sister is born, and the kid's not special anymore, and may develop allergies just to get the attention back. So it's a way for people to feel special. It's not the most fun way, but it's a way to get the attention. So that's something that as you're asking them about their emotions or whatever, you may find that that's the direction that they'll lead you, or you may just want to be aware that sometimes you may just want to call them on it, saying if you didn't have this allergy, you wouldn't be special, would you? And you may appear tremendously intuitive, and they'll say, wow, how did you know that? And then you can say, Alan told me. Another question.
No, I just had a couple comments. I know a couple people had asked about asthma and things along those lines, and I do a lot of extensive allergy work in my practice with the links to chronic illness, and they're always there. There's usually loads of allergies with rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, things along those lines. So I really kind of would encourage people to really go ahead and delve into that. It's not like you're going to mess anything up,
Great.
so to speak. And you'll see huge differences as things start clearing. So it's real good stuff.
Great, thank you.
Mine was a comment on the rheumatoid arthritis. We in Europe are probably much more fortunate than you here in the United States. I'm a holistic health practitioner, which equates in Germany to a heilpraktiker, which means that we can do a lot of diagnosing and all sorts of things that here you probably couldn't. But going back to the point about rheumatoid arthritis, I have found that very often rheumatoid arthritis is the result of toxic sorts, that there's a huge amount of negativity with people who have it. And it's clearing that up, which is a challenge, of course, but to get them to a more positive way of thinking that actually will help the condition. But, of course, if it's gone so far, there's absolutely nothing you can do because, of course, it does affect the joints and so on, you know. But that's my point.
Great. Thank you. Hi.
Hi. I was wondering if you've had any experience with people with chronic fatigue and where to start with something like that.
Not per se, you know. And again, Steve said the second greatest day in his life was when he got his license. Well, I've never gotten my license, so I don't deal with symptoms. I don't deal with things that are wrong. When a person comes to me, I don't look at them as a collection of things that are wrong with them that we have to fix. I think that they're perfect the way they are, and it's my job to help them have more fun at it. So again, I haven't seen chronic fatigue per se, but again, I would start out the same way. You know, how do you feel about having it, and just go from there. And I personally, I like to trace the feelings back. I like to go, is there an earlier time when you felt that, so that you know you can clear it out all at once, hopefully. So, and usually you get to core issues that way. Okay, one more question.
Just a couple things I'd like to share.
Sure.
My experience with chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia is both involve traumas in the past and substance sensitivities. Now you work from both ends.
Right.
The other thing is the pet allergies. Every time I worked with somebody with a pet allergy, always they come up to some insight of some early memory of when the cat scratched them or they were scared by a big dog or something like that. It's absolutely got emotional roots. And the other thing is, I haven't had the experience of coming upon somebody having anaphylactic shock. But when I trained with Callahan, he shared that 6 different times he had been in a restaurant when people were eating, when somebody ate something they were very, very allergic to, that they had started going into anaphylactic shock. They called 911, you know, the ambulance is on the way. In the meantime, excuse me, he did this, and they immediately started to be able to breathe.
Cool.
This is really a powerful point. The side of the hand
Karate point.
The other thing is, he said he and his wife were walking along the beach in California. She was stung on the foot by a bee, and she was very allergic to bees. The medicine was in the car. It was a long way off. Her foot started to swell up. They did this. It went down. 6 times on the way back to the car, the foot started to swell up. They did this. It went down. This is really important to know about if you're with somebody that is going into anaphylactic shock.
Great, thank you. Lots of times, hang on for 1 second. Lots of times people, you ever get this question, how long will it last? Yes. Okay, because they think, well, if it doesn't last, then it doesn't work. So I ask them if they take vitamins, and lots of times they do. I say, well, obviously they don't work because you have to take them the next day. If I'm going in for back surgery, and I'm going to be in bed for 6 months and in pain for another year, and it costs me $150,000, man, I want that to last, and that's important. But if it's going to take this in 5 minutes, and now that you paid for the conference and the tapes and everything, it's basically free. So what if you have to do it again? Do you resent having to take vitamins the next day or eating? Sometimes chocolate, I know, but it's how long it lasts doesn't mean it didn't work. There was a man that I met, and after we did a whole day workshop, he could hear high pitches for the first time in 12 years. Now, that was cool. And then a couple months later, he lost his hearing again. But he had a month, an hour, even a minute where he could hear. What does that tell you? It tells you that it's not a physical problem. He's got the physical capabilities of hearing. So even giving him 10 seconds where he can hear, maybe we'll start him on the road to where he can work with the issues that are really going on. We have another question back here.
Just a comment of what I experienced through the years. I had low blood sugar very badly. I had rheumatoid arthritis. I was very crippled, lupus, and so on. And so what I've found and experienced is one thing that would always come to my mind is, how is this serving me? And when I have a client that comes, I'll ask them that. And they'll say, well, what do you mean? They have no idea how it's serving them. I mean, consciously, how could it? Doesn't make sense. And so I'll use the tool of Louise Hay's book. You just look up the symptom. You read that to them, they go, oh, yeah, it's like a light bulb goes out. And I'll use all the tools that are out there that are already invented. I'll use doctors' tools regarding what they found regarding rheumatoid arthritis, whether it's immune suppression or even parasites and so on. Use all the tools that are out there and use muscle tests to verify it and go from there.
That's great. A great question is, what's the payoff? You know, and in anything else, it's like follow the money, right? What's the payoff? And whether it's feeling special or self-punishing or anger or whatever it is, and you'll usually come up with something that's going to work really well.
Hi, Alan. I wonder if you would address working with more than one allergen at a time. Do you work with only one, or do you do a group of them?
That's a good question. Muscle testing is a wonderful tool because I don't need to know any answers. So what I do is, sometimes what I'll do is I'll test a whole lot of things, and we'll get 8 or 10 sensitivities, and I'll say, can we get these all at once? And if it says yes, I say, is there a priority, or is there one thing that we can focus on that will work with all of them? Because sometimes there's one thing that will kick in. One time I was working with somebody had a toxin. I don't remember what it was, but it would hold strong for like seconds and then go weak again. And then we found out that it was, I think, a bracelet that she was wearing. We worked with that. We got that strong, and then everything else stayed. So sometimes there's an order where you have to proceed in a priority, and you can find that through muscle testing or just noticing really well.